Hi there and welcome to the Daily Arsenal News Show. Let's dive into today's top stories. Arsenal ready to let extraordinary £21 million player leave in January. Arsenal are gearing up for another busy January and could be prepared to let one of their newest signings, Jakub Kiwior, leave the club. Kiwior was only signed by Mikel Arteta back in January for around £21 million, but has found the going tough in North London. The partnership of Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba has left Kiwior very much on the fringes of things, and recent reports have suggested clubs in Italy want to take Kiwior on loan. And according to a report from 90 Minutes today, Arsenal are now leaning towards being open to letting Kiwior move on in January if the opportunity arises. It's claimed that the Gunners have no issues with how the Polish defender is developing. However, they do see an issue with his lack of game time and would explore the idea of him leaving on loan. The reality for Kiwior is that he was always going to be brought into the club to be covered, and breaking into the back four was always going to be tough. Despite being lauded by Lewandowski as an extraordinary defender, Arsenal have a settled defense with quality players involved. Breaking down a partnership like Saliba and Gabriel is no easy task, and we have seen Ben White be moved to right back to accommodate that as well. Unfortunately for Arsenal and players like Kiwior, this is how it gets when you become a title contender. Unless you are exceptional and sign directly to impact the first 11, there is always going to have to be an acceptance that certain tiny players have small roles to play. For Kiwior, the urge to play regular football will always be there, while for Arsenal, they will want to ensure they don't just let players go and then rue that judgment due to injuries further in the season. Certainly, then, it seems like the Gunners have a big call to make. Pundit says there is no chance £25 million player stays at Arsenal for much longer. Aaron Ramsdale is in an enviable position at Arsenal right now. The goalkeeper hasn't done all that much wrong for the Gunners, but he finds himself very much out of Mikel Arteta's plans with no real solution on the horizon. Ramsdale has lost his place in the Arsenal team, and it won't be long before he is completely out of the England reckoning as well if he continues. Speaking on the Premier League All Access podcast, Scott Minto has been discussing Ramsdale and his father's comment about his lack of minutes this week, and the Pundit came to the conclusion that the goalkeeper won't be staying at Arsenal for much longer, as it's obvious that David Raya is the clear first choice. Minto shared his verdict on the £25 million man's future. He said, I don't get the point of him doing that. I understand from a fatherly point of view, your son is being pushed out of Arsenal. I think unfairly, there is no way he will stay and fight for his place because the decision has already been made. It's David Raya. If he wants to be the number 2 at Arsenal, then fine, but he is better than that. We tend to agree that Ramsdale should have his eyes on a move away from Arsenal in the near future, but we can't for the life of us think of where he should go. The goalkeeping market is a real mess right now. The likes of David De Gea and Hugo Lloris are both finding it impossible to find new clubs, and with Arsenal likely to command a big transfer fee for Ramsdale, it's hard to imagine it will be easy for him to get this move either. Ramsdale does need an Arsenal exit, but right now, there doesn't appear to be a viable escape route. ESPN Pundit says 28-year-old Arsenal player has made more mistakes than we thought possible. Arsenal goalkeeper David Raya has been criticized by ESPN pundit Steve Nicol for making more mistakes than we thought possible. The pundit, speaking on ESPN FC, was talking about the Gunners man in the context of the row that has erupted relating to Arsenal's goalkeepers. Aaron Ramsdale was the Gunners' first choice stopper for 2 seasons, but this changed earlier this season after Arsenal signed Raya. Arteta opted to drop Ramsdale and make Raya his first choice keeper, even though the England goalkeeper was doing well. Ramsdale has not started a Premier League game since September 3 and is now effectively Raya's backup. Earlier this week, Ramsdale's father Nick told Highbury Squad that the Arsenal manager has relegated his son to second choice without telling him that was the case. Nicol, speaking on ESPN FC, believes Ramsdale likely wouldn't have an issues if Raya was actually performing superbly. He began. Any professional player, whether you are on the field, in the goal, wherever it is, if you are not playing and it's pretty obvious that the guy in front of you is playing, but he is playing well, you can't say anything. You have just gotta keep your head down, work hard, and keep a smile on your face until you get an opportunity. But the fact that Raya has not been outstanding, the fact that he has made mistakes, more mistakes than we thought possible, but nothing's changed. I'm sorry if Ramsdale walks in every morning with his chin at his feet, then you can't have a problem with that if you are anybody at Arsenal. Arteta doesn't seem to have handled the situation particularly well. Ramsdale clearly doesn't seem happy at present, and his father's interview revealed the discontent behind the scenes. This has also added pressure on Raya. Every keeper will make the odd mistake, but if the 28-year-old makes one, it leads to calls of, well, why isn't Ramsdale playing instead? £35 million Arsenal player is now hailed as best in the Premier League. Alexander Zinchenko has been hailed as the best left back in the Premier League by Jose Enrique. Speaking to Skauka, the former Newcastle fullback was asked who he thought was the best left back in the division right now, and he ultimately settled on the Arsenal star. In all honesty, the Premier League isn't blessed with many world-class left-backs at the moment, and while Estopinian and Robertson both got flitting mentions from Enrique, he ended up deciding that, for him, Zinchenko is the best left-back in the league. Enrique gave his verdict on the £35 million man. He said, I don't know. I love Zinchenko, I love him, for example. Best one? I'm not sure. For me, all others fit. I love Robertson, to be honest with you, and not because he plays for Liverpool. I really love him. I think he is top class, but with all the injuries that you mentioned from the top teams as well, I love Estopinian from Brighton as well, but I think Zinchenko. I like Zinchenko a lot from a top team that really like to have the ball and everything like that. He is a complete fullback. I like him a lot. Whether or not Zinchenko is the best left back in the Premier League or not is up for debate, but the fact that he is even in this conversation is incredible. Let's not forget, this role is not the Ukrainian's natural position. He came through as a midfielder and he still plays in that role for his country. But despite not being a left back by trade, he cemented himself as one of the best in the Premier League in that role. Zinchenko has been brilliant since joining Arsenal, and he played a huge part in the Gunners' incredible defensive record this season. Leandro Trossard says 22-year-old Arsenal player is so dangerous. Leandro Trossard and Bukayo Saka might be the most underrated partnership in the Premier League for Arsenal right now. The two don't often get the chance to play together due to their respective roles in this Arsenal side, but when they do play together, they can make magic happen. Indeed, these two seem to have a great understanding on the flanks. In fact, every single one of Trossard's competitive goals for Arsenal so far have been assisted by Saka. Speaking on the Arsenal YouTube channel, Trossard has been full of praise for his teammate and his ability to assist him, claiming that he has bags of quality and can always make something happen when he is on the ball. Trossard spoke highly of the young winger. First, Trossard was told, it's interesting that you bring up Bukayo because all of your competitive goals for Arsenal have been assisted by Saka, Trossard said. I heard that a lot the other day after the Chelsea goal. I don't know why it is, but Bukayo has so much quality to find other players, and whenever he is on the ball, something can happen. Trossard is spot on about Saka. He's got an unreal amount of quality and he can always make something happen when he is on the ball. Saka is just one of those players who sees the game differently to anyone else. He is the man you want on the ball in those decisive moments and he can turn the tide in any game on his own. Trossard may have only been at Arsenal for a year, but he is already struck up an incredible relationship with Saka, and that is something that Mikel Arteta should keep in mind when deciding how he wants his attack to line up. Saka deserves all the praise he gets from fans, teammates, and pundits alike. Pundit says £30 million Arsenal player is bordering on being elite. Arsenal's Martin Odegaard may only be 24 years old, but he is already one of the best footballers Norway has ever produced. The Scandinavian nation has produced the likes of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and John Arne Riise over the years, but Odegaard is already up there with the best of them. Of course, in time, Erling Haaland will probably prove to trump the lot of them, but for now, Odegaard is very much in that conversation for the best Norwegian player ever. Speaking on ESPN, Jan Hjortfoot was asked which Norwegian players he would put on the so-called Mount Rushmore of Norwegian football, and he says that Odegaard has to get a mention, claiming that he and Erling Haaland are the two players that are closest to being world class at the moment. Fjortoft gave his opinion on the £30 million Arsenal midfielder. He said, I will say that we have to start with the two who are the closest to world class at the moment, Erling Haaland and Martin Odegaard. I have to put in Rune Bratseth, our centre half in the 90s and the captain of our national team. In terms of pure talent, Odegaard is up there with the best players in the world, but internationally, it has to be said he needs to be doing more. This is a golden generation for Norway, but Odegaard isn't showing up for his country the same way he is for his club. He scored just 3 goals in 55 appearances internationally, despite playing against relative minnows at times. In comparison, he bagged 15 goals in the Premier League alone last term against much better opposition. Odegaard is close to that elite level of player, but if he is to truly cement himself as one of the best in the world, he needs to make some sort of mark on the international stage. Reporter claims £60 million player now won't be signing for Arsenal in January. Ivan Toney has been the talk of the transfer window as we head into January. Both Arsenal and Chelsea have been credited with a strong interest in the Brentford striker upon his return from his ban, and some are even led to believe that Toney will be signing for Arsenal in January. However, according to Sam Matterface, speaking on the TalkSport Premier League All Access podcast, such a transfer isn't in the pipeline for this winter. Matterface has heard from a reliable source that Tony will not be leaving Brentford in January, claiming that a move in the summer is much more likely and that the striker could even end up signing a new contract. Matterface shared what he knows about the £60 million Arsenal target. He said, he is currently on a ban at Brentford and will be back at the end of January. There is lots of talk about him moving in January. We thought he was going to move in January actually, but I have been reliably told now that he is not going to move in January. It will be in the summer. If he does end up leaving Brentford, Brentford are trying to get him to sign a new contract and they expect to do that, I think, before he comes back. It has to be said that Tony moving next summer makes more sense than a move in January. There is an element of loyalty that the striker should show to Brentford after they stuck with him through this ban, and even if the player himself does want to leave, the ball is in the bee's court. Brentford won't be keen to lose their star player anytime soon, and even if Arsenal do come knocking, they ought to be able to hold them off until the summer in order to give themselves time to find a replacement. Don't be shocked if Tony ends up staying in West London for the remainder of the season. Tottenham to compete with Arsenal and Newcastle for £47 million playmaker. Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur are expected to push for a new midfielder in the winter transfer window. According to a report by Team Talk, they have their eyes set on Al Hilal's Ruben Neves. The Portuguese international made a name for himself while playing for Wolves in the Premier League. He was on the radar of some of the biggest clubs in the world during the summer, but the 26-year-old ended up joining Saudi Pro League club Al Hilal. The Middle East club paid £47 million to acquire his services, and he earns a whopping £300,000 per week. While things seem to be going well on the pitch, reports suggest he hasn't been able to adjust to life in the Middle East, and Neves is keen on making a return to Europe in the winter transfer window. Newcastle United are primary contenders for his services. The Magpies want to sign him on a short loan to cope with the ban of Sandro Tonali. However, it will depend on the outcome of a vote by Premier League clubs who could block affiliate organizations from conducting business. Even Arsenal are keen on having him in their ranks. Mikel Arteta wants more quality in the center of the park, and he feels Neves could be a great fit for the club. Meanwhile, Tottenham Hotspur have also entered the race for his services. While all three clubs will look to sign him on a short loan, they could even negotiate an option to buy. According to the report, the Saudi Pro League club will look for a fee of around £60 million. As we wrap up today's Arsenal news, remember to stay tuned for daily updates right here on the channel. Don't miss out on the latest updates, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a like if you found this information valuable. Your support means the world to us. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.